Welcome to Chaos, Courage and Coffee, the podcast for anyone who's felt like on the outside I'm holding it together, but inside I'm struggling.
And we do it with honesty, heart, and just enough coffee to get through the day.
Good morning, Vanessa.
Hi, Brett. How you doing?
I'm well, and how are you?
Oh, I'm okay, thank you. Busy my end, but I am all good.
All right. So I know we just had this brief discussion and I don't know what topic you're going to bring, but you've got something you want to talk about today.
Well, I have actually, and it just came to me. I was out for my morning walk, and it's another one of my pet hates, actually. And it's that word balance. And the reason I want to talk about balance is because I think people misunderstand it. And it came to me because I was thinking, and here's another, I don't know, one of those words. People are all about living in the now. And what's interesting is, follow my thought process. I was like, some people live so in the now that there's no future in there. They're not thinking about it. And they're not looking at their past in a way of kind of assessing it and refining it and going, oh, I could improve on that or whatever. And it led me to the whole topic of balance, because if you're just so busy living in the now, honestly, it doesn't work for you. So some people are stuck because they're not looking at the future. And yeah, made me think of the topic balance, which is one that I don't really like because it's kind of one of those words that's thrown around a lot these days. But I'd love to explore the concept of it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I think you've hit on something really important. Not quite the way I thought you would take this. So I think most people, when they talk about balance, it's about balancing work-life balance, for example. They talk about it's a much more present balance, as opposed to where you were thinking of this. And I think you're right. If we only focus, and it doesn't matter whether we're talking about work-life balance or we're talking about life balance, present versus future. If we focus too much on one aspect of our life, then there is no balance. There's no, as you say, if we're not planning for the future, then we're stuck in the now. And it is really important to be in the present, to think about now and experience life as it is and not overly concern ourselves with the future. But again, I'm going to take us back to that analogy that we talked about or that we've used before. If we're going somewhere, if we want to get in the car and go somewhere and, we don't put a direction into the GPS, then it doesn't matter where we end up because we've gone somewhere different from where we are now. But we need to have a plan for our life and where we want to be in the longer term. And I know I'm guilty of it. I was absolutely guilty of it for a very long time. I didn't have a future plan. I just rolled through life and blew wherever the winds took me, in a boat without a rudder and a motor or a sail or an oar for that matter.
Oh, I was going to say a whole lot. Well, we could bring it back to mums and veterans, because it's very easy in these situations to be in that place where, because you're just trying to manage today. And I think we've talked about it a little bit before. And so where I was thinking was that people misunderstand what balance is, and that's why they don't have this balance.
Mhm.
So it's like another topic, which is fairness, where people think fairness means even. So say you have fairness between a couple, or between kids, it's even, it's exactly the same. No, that's not what fairness is. So when my husband and I were running a motel, we split up the tasks. So we didn't go, okay, it's your turn to mop today, to keep it fair and even. I think it's the same with balance. I met up with a guy a couple of years ago and we had a conversation about balance. And people think that it means it has to be even and level kind of all the time. Work-life balance. Right, I need to be working here and then I need to have time off here. No, it's not like that. It's like, as an overall in the month, say, you've got to make sure you've got some balance. So I wonder if people are putting too much pressure and that's why they give up on this work-life balance or any other balance. What do you think?
I think you could be right, but I think also there is a lot of emphasis on it. And I think it's an important emphasis. I think it is a discussion that needs to be had, but I think it needs to be redefined, as you say. And I think perhaps it's the language that we use. So when people talk about fair, a lot of the times they talk about equal, and equal isn't necessarily, and there's a really great picture on it, which everybody can Google. If they simply uh, Google images, equal versus, or yeah, equity, or equitable is the right word I'm looking for. So equal, and the basic premise of the picture is when everybody's equal, everybody's standing on the ground. And the really short person can't see over the fence. The middle-sized person can just see over the fence. And the really tall person can see over the fence very easily. That's equal. They've all got the same, equality. But when we talk about equitable, and it changes so that the tall person is standing on the ground, the middle-sized person is standing on a small box, and the shorter person is standing on a larger box. And they can all see over the fence exactly the same. So that's equitable. And I think that's what we really should be focusing on, getting away from equal, or, the redefinition or the repurposing, I suppose, of fair. What is fair in the circumstances? All right. And moving away from equal. And I know we've taken this down a completely different path now, but when we start talking about and applying this to um, the balance and making sure that we're balancing one aspect of our lives with a different aspect of our lives, and whether we're talking about work-life balance or whether we're talking about um, you know present versus future, it is about putting things in balance. And it's important, I think, to understand that having a direction in life and having a plan to get there is just as important as being in the present and understanding and being part of whatever situation you're in, enjoying friends, enjoying those moments with family, those sorts of things. So, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah. So it's really interesting because the balance of like forward planning, having a plan, it's not about being specific. It's not about knowing exactly where you're going. It's just about putting some of your mind into what the future is. And let's take your boat analogy. I love the boat analogy because when I think about this topic of having a future and not having a specific plan, is you might be, we're in a boat, okay, just a little boat. It might have a sail, oars, any other things that we need to help move it in the direction we want to go. And we might see an island and we might start heading for the island. Okay. And that's an analogy for in my future, I want X. The point is, once we set off, we're moving, we're going forwards. We don't have to stick rigidly to that plan. We might still go to the island, but actually, and if you're like me, you'll get completely distracted by something that's off that direction and you'll head off that way. That's fine. We still might be going to the island. But do you know what? Once we've headed off that way, we're moving forwards, which is, by the way, a real human need. Okay, there's research about this. So this is why I wanted to bring the topic, because it's very, very important for us to have forward momentum. Almost it doesn't matter where you're going, just start going somewhere. So if you're like me and you've headed off in that direction, you might then still afterwards head back to the island, or you might see something else and head towards that. So in the big picture sense, it doesn't actually matter where you're going. Just have a plan that there's somewhere forward that you're heading to. And I relate it to when my husband died and I just wanted to move forwards. And I was like, okay, I'm going to move towards the light at the end of the tunnel. At that point, there wasn't even a light at the end of the tunnel. I was just going to keep moving forwards until I saw a light at the end of the tunnel. And I don't know if anyone can understand that analogy, but you don't have to have been in my situation, but a situation, whether it be, Brett, your veterans, where they come out of the services and they've got absolutely no idea. There is no light. You just make some plan of moving forwards, and eventually you'll start to see a light. Does that make sense for you?
It does, absolutely. And I think you're right. Just having any idea of where you might want to go is better than having no idea at all.
Yeah.
And even having an idea, as you say, it doesn't mean we need to necessarily achieve it. And I think for a lot of people, we need to also perhaps forgive ourselves a little bit if we don't get there. If life takes a turn, we don't have to be so rigidly fixed on this one thing. We might be in our boat heading towards the island, and then we see the fish jumping and we decide to go fishing instead of going to the island because we're hungry or we need something to eat. So it's okay to take a detour. It's okay to change your mind and go to the island, the next island over, instead of stopping at the first one. You know, that's life. That's life's journey, and it doesn't matter how we do it as long as we've got a destination in mind. And I think, again, taking us back, if we're not, you know, we need to be proportional.
Yeah, that's a good word. Because bringing us back to the balance, an analogy I use a lot with my clients is you're climbing up a mountain, okay, which represents life. A lot of us are climbing up a mountain, but it's okay to stop on a ledge and rest and like admire the view, go, oh, wow, look, I've achieved all of this. It's not all about the forward movement. And this is where we come back to balance. It's okay to be living in the now. I know it's a big thing at the minute to live in the now, as though nobody ever did. But now I'm like, oh, everybody's now living too much in the now, and we're losing sight of the future. It's too easy to get caught up with some of these, not just the terms, but the ideas that are going around at the minute. So almost, I don't want to say take them with a pinch of salt, but I mean, don't be extreme with it. Don't be, oh, I have to live in the now. I must remember to live in the now. Still have a view on your future and still have a view on your past. We talked last time about like the good moments, and we said, look at your past and like pick out what was so good about it, or what moment was it. This is good. We don't need to lose sight of the past. We don't need to lose sight of the future, and we don't need to lose sight of the present. That's what I mean by balance, but they're not in even proportions. Thank you so much for throwing that word in. That's probably the word I was missing.
You're welcome. I think you're right. You've brought in the present, the past, and we need to consider all of it. If we focus too much on the past, we forget about the present, and we lose sight of the future because we're always looking backwards. And if we focus too much on the present, again, we're still not looking forward. We might have that past and the bad thing that might have happened there previously, and that detracts somewhat from what we're doing now, and might again detract, or might actually provide us with incentive for the future. I don't want to be in that situation again, so this is my plan. I think one of the things that, to some degree, here in Australia anyway, we have a very good superannuation system here. A certain percentage of our wages goes into superannuation for all the years that we work. And, when we retire, that funds or helps fund our retirement. It's similar to I think they call it 401k in the US. I don't know what other countries call it. I just know what it's called here. And, that happens for our entire working lives. So we don't need to plan that much for our future necessarily, because the government on our behalf has legislated that this is what's going to happen, and that percentage is gradually increasing over time. So those superannuation balances at retirement are increasing over time, and obviously it's time investments, compounding interest, and all those sorts of things. So people are going to retire as long as they work. They're going to retire with hundreds of thousands, if not a million or more dollars in the bank, or in their superannuation accounts, which should fund them for the rest of their lives. That's the plan anyway.
So that's the money plan.
That's the money plan, but there's no other life plan.
Yeah.
Do you need to own your own house? Where do you want to live? All those sorts of questions. What do you want to do in retirement? What do you want to do for a career? My son's just finished university as a animation. He's done a degree in animation, which is really cool. Not something I could ever do, but he's done this. Now he doesn't want to do animation anymore. He's decided he's gone and done his 3 years of study, and he's learnt this stuff, and he's graduating next year with a bachelor's degree in animation, but he doesn't want to do that. And that's okay. Now, my daughter's just finished a degree in psychology. She doesn't want to do psychology anymore. She wants to do social work. That's okay. You set your path, and, as long as you're moving forward. There's a saying that other life coaches have used. You're either green and growing, or you're ripe and rotting. If you're not growing, you're not growing. You're not, so
Well, that comes from the fact that there's always movement, right? There's no such thing as static. So if you're not moving forwards, you're like still water on a pond and you're growing algae.
yeah,
I thought you were going to say the Tony Robbins one where focus goes,
those
energy
energy.
goes.
Yeah.
And so, I wanted to kind of be mindful of that. And it's just so interesting you talking about like, oh yeah, we're all set up for the future financially. But it's what about the rest of your life plan? And another thing I used to do with my clients was do the one, and you've probably done this. Imagine you're 90 or whatever, and you're sitting on your deck in your rocking chair. Sorry guys, but I live this side of the world as well. And so the weather's beautiful. We're outside, it's not raining, it's not windy, it's really pleasant. And there we are at 90. We still might have the blanket over our knees to keep us warm because we're not very mobile. But you're 90, you're looking out over the world, whatever it is, your view that you see from your deck, and you reflect on life. Now imagine, put yourself there now. What regrets would you have? What would you be saying? Your grandchildren or great grandchildren are there, and you're going, "Oh, I just had such a good life. I did this, 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 and this, and I've got a family." And put yourself there now, because you don't want to get there and then go, "Oh my God, I wish at whatever age I'd thought about this," because it's a little bit late at 90 to create life experiences. So do it now.
I, I agree, but I'm going to challenge you on that, because then again, you're living in the present a little bit. Your plan for the future gets you to doing things now, which is cool, and I agree. But maybe it's about having that. I don't know if you saw that movie. It had Jack Nicholson and I think Morgan Freeman in it, The Bucket List.
Yeah.
Do your bucket list. Sit down and go through. These are the things I want to do. These are the things that, will mean something when I'm older. And start ticking on them.
Yeah, but they
off.
don't have to be big things, because that's what we were saying in the last podcast was, the moments that you enjoy are the moments of how you're feeling, and they're not necessarily bucket list things. So there is a really good reason to look at your past, even right now. Look at your past. As we said last time, what were the good moments, and what were they? Were they just the friends you were hanging out with? Because if it was just an evening out with your friends, see, that's not bucket list. I bet how many people put that on your bucket list? You can do that every week, every month, but you need to understand that they're important to you. And I guess that's where the past comes in, to put it into the present, so that in the future you can look back on the past and go, "Oh, I did that. Did I lose you?"
And now we're starting to get into a little bit of quantum physics.
Yes, project yourself into the future looking at the past.
Yeah. But I think you're right. I think you're important. And again, taking it back to where we started and we talk about balance, it is about having that balance now, not waiting and having those regrets, as you say, when you're 90 years old, sitting on your porch or whatever, watching the world go by and saying, "Oh, if only," or "I wish I had," or "I wish I did this thing." Um, you know,
It's like the one, "I'll be happy when," because then that's too future based, because then we're not even enjoying the now because we're waiting for this future thing, you know? So that's why balance is important. You can't sit in, I mean, here we are, we keep discussing it. And we're like, you can't sit in any one of these. But balance isn't about proportional even amounts in each. It's being free to flow between them.
I think you're absolutely right. It's so I use the term in my training that I do, that it's important to be able to have the flexibility, the internal and mental flexibility, I suppose, to be in the right frame of mind at the right time. There's no one size fits all approach. Yes, it's important to be present now, but we also need to consider, have a plan for the future and remember the past. And, what's important? Well, where have I been and what have I done and what was really good about the past? Maybe, trying to not necessarily recreate those now, but if you're trying to recreate something, you're thinking about the future and you're putting a plan in place to do this thing again. So it is important, but we're not just talking about the work-life balance. We're not just talking about, short-term activity-based balance, perhaps longer term. Where do I want to be? It's really great. You see some of these people who um, they give up everything and they start traveling, whether they're traveling the world, they're traveling just their own country, and they're living a digital life, being social media creators, content creators, whatever they're called. And that's really great. But what's their plan after that? What are they going to do? Oh, we'll worry about it when we get there. Yeah, there's a certain aspect of that. Yes, you might be able to manage. If you've got, qualifications, training, experience behind you, then yes, that might be a lot easier, but that's not going to be appropriate for all people.
And here's another one I used to do with my clients that gets them to kind of finding out the core of what's really important to them. And you might have done this as well, but you say, right, imagine you just won millions of dollars. It used to be $1 million. That does nothing these days. So you won $10 million, or you were gifted it, or you inherited it. And then you say, like, what would you do with it? But just to make them help them get to the core, you say, and then every month you get another $1 million. And so once they've gone through that, I'm going to go traveling, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to give money to my parents, pay off their mortgage and my friends. And you let them go through all of those. And then you say, right, and then you've traveled and you've done all of those things. Now what? Because we're so busy thinking, God, I just wish I had a few $1 million so I could go traveling, blah, blah, blah. We don't get past that. It's like what you said. Okay, you've gone traveling. Then what? You're not traveling for the rest of your life. You might have a lot of holidays and a lot of trips, but you need to get to what else underneath it. The other thing I wanted to say is, do you know how I always say to clients at the end of a session, what was your biggest takeaway from this session? And as you were talking earlier, I was like, oh, I've just had a big takeaway. And so my takeaway, and I know we haven't even finished yet, my takeaway is about that flow and floating from past, present, and future. It's about almost like when you do timeline therapy, and sorry for the jargon there, but for those who know it, you float above and you're just surveying, like being a bird, and you're looking down on your life, but you're looking the past, the present, the future, but keep moving. Don't, don't get stuck in one or the other. And that's my big takeaway.
I want to go back to what you said about having your plan, your $1 million a day. I call it the ideal average day, because there's only so many days you can spend laying on the beach, doing nothing, reading a book. For most people, we need purpose. And so your ideal average day is, what are you going to do once all your other money worries are taken care of and you don't have to go to work every day? What are you going to do with your days? Are you going to spend it with friends, family? Are you going to volunteer? Uh, you know, ideal, as I said, for me, I use an ideal average day. What does that look like?
That's absolutely it. It's just what, and I help people create their ideal day, from the minute of like, what time are you waking up? What are you doing first? Are you having a cup of coffee? And take them through it. And I used to do this for creating when they wanted to know, like, they used to say they wanted their purpose, but I go, but what's your job? What job do you want? So, like Ikigai. And it's like, what are you wanting to do with your life? Well, let's plan out your ideal day, because some people are introverts. They don't want to be hanging with people all the time. Other people, their ideal day is, I want to get out there. I want to be visiting people. Or I want to be in the office. My daughter's just had an interview and it's remote work. Actually, my son also is saying, no, I don't want to work for an overseas company because I don't want to be on my own. I like going into the office. Plan, they're nothing to do with money, you know, because they're like, what actually makes you feel excited in the morning? So what, like you said, is your ideal day? What's your average day? What's it really going to boil down to? That's where we need to get to.
Absolutely. So it takes a little bit of, my father used to call it navel gazing, looking inside and finding out what's important. And when we start to identify what's important, we can start figuring out, how do we build a life that incorporates that or is focused on those things? And again, that brings us back to our ideal day. Once we know that, whether it's Ikigai or other things, once we know what's important, then we can start building the plan. Future, we can start building the plan to put us in a place to live that life that we want to live. Whether it's, as I said, volunteering, not just sitting on a beach. It might be a house in the mountains or a house by the beach or by a lake where you can get out and go fishing. Everybody's different and it's what's important to you. But if you don't spend the time thinking about the future and where you want to be, you will be in that boat without a motor and or a sail, and you'll just be floating and the tides will take you wherever they choose to.
Well, I think that's a really good place to end. And I'd love people to have a think about 2 things that you got from our conversation today. Remember to like and subscribe to our channel, and please put some comments or even suggest a topic, because Brett and I we love talking about anything. So please suggest away. We're happy.
Absolutely. So thank you, Vanessa, and thank you everybody for listening, and join us next time.
Thanks for being with us today on Chaos, Courage and Coffee. Remember, you're not alone and you don't have to figure it all out at once. What part of today's conversation stood out for you?
This podcast is about showing up in the mess, not waiting until it's all sorted out. If today helped, share it with someone else who might need it too.
And if you're navigating your own version of chaos, we'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment, message us, or join the conversation.
We'll be back soon with more honest talk, less pressure, and just enough courage to get through whatever's next.
See you next time on Chaos, Courage and Coffee.